In a world addicted to noise, silence has become an act of rebellion. We live in a culture where the loudest person is often mistaken for the strongest, where everyone scrambles to defend, to explain, to clap back at every insult, every betrayal, every lie. But here's a truth most people never learn. The more you react, the more control you give away, because reaction isn't strength, it's surrender. When you explain yourself to someone who's already twisted the truth, you validate their gain. When you argue with someone committed to misunderstanding you, you step onto their battlefield, where the rules are rigged and the goalposts move. But silence is a weapon they don't know how to fight. When you fall silent, the game collapses, the manipulator loses their stage, the gossip loses their fuel, the provocateur punches at shadows and hits nothing. And that's where karma begins its quiet work, because life has a way of balancing its own scales. You don't need to destroy them. You don't need to defend yourself. All you need is time and silence and the discipline to let the universe do what it always does, bring consequences back to their rightful owners. This isn't weakness, it's warfare. A war fought without shouting, without proving, without performing. It's a form of control that no enemy can manipulate, because they can't weaponize what you don't give them. In this video, you'll discover how silence becomes the sharpest blade, not because it shields you from conflict, but because it lets your enemies collapse under the weight of their own actions, quietly, inevitably. We'll break down exactly how to stay silent while karma does the heavy lifting, and in the final chapter, you'll hear a lesson that will permanently change the way you see silence, not as absence, but as absolute dominance. So stay with me, because sometimes the loudest move you can make is no move at all. Lies don't need facts to survive. They need attention. A lie is like a parasite. It feeds off your reaction, your panic, your defenses, your desperate need to clear your name. And the more you respond, the more oxygen you give it. The lie grows stronger because it feeds on your energy. That's the trap most people fall into. Someone twists the truth, and instinct takes over. You want to defend yourself, correct the narrative, call out the liar. But here's the brutal reality. The person spreading lies isn't looking for the truth. They're looking for a show. And the moment you give them one, you've already lost. Because in the court of public opinion, defending yourself often looks like guilt. Stoic wisdom teaches us something sharper. Silence isn't avoidance, it's strategy. When someone lies about you, the loudest thing you can do is say nothing. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Ethan. He worked in sales, competitive, cutthroat, political. One day, a colleague accused him of stealing a high-profile client. The whispers started instantly. Emails, side-eye glances, conversations that stopped when he walked into the room. Ethan had every reason to lash out, but he didn't. He didn't storm into meetings to defend himself. He didn't send frantic messages to clear his name. He didn't feed the drama with counter-accusations. He chose silence. Instead of chasing rumors, he focused on what he could control: his work, his integrity, his presence. He let his results speak louder than his words. Weeks passed, and then the truth came out. Surveillance footage showed the real culprit, the same person who started the rumor. Turns out, the accusation was a cover for their own betrayal. Ethan didn't need to expose them. Karma did. The liar became an outcast, not by force, but by consequence. Their reputation crumbled under the weight of their own scheme. And Ethan, he rose in respect, because while the mudslinging happened around him, he never once dipped his hands into it. That's the power of silence. Lies are fast, but truth is patient. Lies sprint, but truth lingers. When you stay silent, you give the truth room to breathe. Lies burn hot, but they burn out. Truth moves slowly, but it never stops moving. And when it finally arrives, it comes with something no rumor ever had: permanence. So what do you do when someone lies about you? You don't defend. You don't explain. You don't perform innocence for people who are entertained by your downfall. You fall silent. Because silence cuts off the oxygen. It starves the parasite. It forces the lie to exist on its own, and lies can't survive without your reaction. In the end, You don't win by shouting the truth louder. You win by standing still while the lie dies of exhaustion. Let karma handle what you don't need to touch, because the universe has a way of revealing what's real, and the only thing you need to do is let it. Betrayal feels personal, but it isn't. It's not about you. It's about who they are when no one's watching. When someone stabs you in the back, they've already told you the truth of their character. They've revealed the version of themselves they kept hidden. The one that values ego over loyalty, gain over trust, self-interest over respect. But here's where most people get it wrong. They want answers. They confront, demand, plead. Why would you do this? They hope the betrayer will confess, apologize, offer closure. But real betrayal rarely comes with guilt. It comes with curiosity. The person who betrays you isn't usually sorry. They're just wondering, how will you react? Will you lash out? Will you chase them for explanations? Will you crumble in front of them, proving they still have power? That's the real trap, not the betrayal itself, but the aftermath. Because when you respond with rage, tears, or desperation, you hand them the one thing they craved from the start: control over your emotional state. Stoic wisdom chooses a different path. When betrayal comes, you don't chase clarity. You give them nothing, no argument, no dramatic exit, no emotional breakdown, just silence, the kind that echoes louder than any confrontation ever could. Let me tell you a story. Elena co-founded a startup with her friend Ava. For years they built it together. Late nights, shared victories, mutual trust. But one day, Elena discovered something. Ava had siphoned thousands of dollars from the company accounts. Quiet theft, masked by forged invoices and fake expenses. Elena could have confronted her. She could have exploded, demanded explanations, sought justice in front of the team, but she didn't. She chose silence. Elena quietly closed the company accounts, changed the passwords, spoke with the board, had Ava legally removed, without a single argument, without a single accusation hurled in public. No screaming, no scene, just strategy. And Ava, she spiraled, not because Elena punished her, but because Elena refused to play the game. Ava's greed exposed itself to everyone, not through Elena's words but through her own unraveling. Elena didn't just protect the company, she protected her dignity. That's what silence does. When betrayal happens, silence becomes the mirror. It forces the betrayer to face the reflection they tried to hide. No justifications, no distractions, just consequences. And here's the most important truth. You didn't lose them. They lost you. They lost access to your loyalty. They lost a connection to someone real and rare. And when you stay silent, you don't just end the chapter, you close the entire book. So, the next time betrayal finds you, and it will remember this, you don't owe them an argument. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace. Let karma handle the echo, because silence has a weight most people can't carry. And in the end, the greatest punishment for a betrayer is realizing they can never reach you again. Insults are invitations, but not to conversation, to chaos. When someone insults you publicly, they aren't trying to discover truth. They're baiting you into the mud. They're hoping you'll flinch, snap back, or lose composure. Because the moment you react, you hand them the power they never had. It's not about the insult, it's about the spectacle. The insult is just the spark. The real fire is your reaction. And here's where most people get burned. They think a clever comeback will fix the situation. They believe that defending their pride in front of a crowd will restore dignity. But the truth is simple. When you punch a mirror, you bleed while they watch. Public insults are not about facts. They're about dominance. And the second you engage, you've already lost the high ground. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Derek, hard-working, respected, known for his discipline. One day, Derek was awarded a prestigious honor in front of his peers. Years of work finally recognized. The room applauded, except for one man, a rival, jealous, bitter. With a smirk, the rival muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Must be nice when politics choose the winner." The room froze. All eyes shifted to Derek. This was the moment everyone expected: retaliation. A comeback, a correction, an emotional defense. But Derek, he didn't blink. He smiled. calm, still, silent. No rebuttal, no clap back, no lowering himself into the mud. And in that silence something happened. The insult didn't stick to Derek. It stuck to the man who said it. His bitterness became obvious to everyone. His envy exposed itself without help. Over the next few weeks, people distanced themselves from him, not because Derek fought back, but because he didn't have to. That's the quiet power of restraint. When you meet insults with silence, you don't just avoid conflict, you force the attacker to wrestle with their own reflection. They become their own worst enemy, because silence turns the spotlight back onto the one who threw the stone, and eventually, they're the only one left standing in the darkness they created. Some people don't want resolution, they want attention. They twist reality, rewrite the story, and shed just enough tears to flip the narrative. Suddenly you're the villain, and they're the poor, misunderstood soul who never did anything wrong. This isn't conflict, it's theater, and the worst part. The more you defend yourself, the more you feed the performance. Every time you explain, you hand them new lines for their script. Because for manipulators, the victim card isn't desperation, it's strategy. They don't want clarity, they want control, and your defense is their fuel. Let me tell you a story. Liam worked in an office with someone just like this. A co-worker who always found a way to cry victim. Every time she was held accountable for mistakes, she'd twist the story. She'd tear up, shift the blame, and paint herself as the one being attacked. At first, Liam tried to stay logical. He brought receipts, presented facts, explained things calmly, thinking truth would win. It didn't. Because while Liam was speaking facts, she was playing emotions. And in the eyes of the room, emotion always beats logic, at least at first. Until one day Liam stopped. No more defense, no more counter-arguments, no more falling into the trap. He stayed silent. And over time, something shifted. The people watching started to see the pattern. The same co-worker was always the victim. There was always a new enemy, a new injustice, a new story designed to gather sympathy and deflect blame. Her act collapsed, not because Liam exposed her, but because she overplayed her role. That's what happens when you refuse to feed manipulation. It starves itself. Silence reveals what argument never could: patterns. People may believe a victim once, maybe twice, but eventually they notice when someone's always crying wolf. So the next time someone weaponizes their pain to control you, remember this: you don't stop a manipulative act by arguing. You stop it by stepping back. Let them play their role. Let them gather their audience. And let them run out of script. Because silence isn't just restraint, it's exposure. Consistency is one of the rarest gifts you can offer another human being, showing up, checking in, carrying the weight when no one else will. But here's the problem: people don't notice consistency until it's gone. When you're always there, you become background noise. When you're always available, you become assumed. And when you're always giving, they stop asking how much it costs you. That's the quiet tragedy of being reliable. You become invisible, and most people, they keep giving anyway. They keep overextending, hoping one day the effort will be recognized. But the truth is, the more you over-deliver without boundaries, the less they see your worth. That's why Stoicism hands you a sharper strategy: silence, not as punishment, but as revelation. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Victor. He was the rock in everyone's life, the friend who always texted first, the co-worker who covered shifts, the brother who remembered every birthday, every milestone. Whenever someone needed something, Victor showed up, until one day he stopped. No warnings, no arguments, no emotional speeches, just silence. He stopped making the first call, stopped fixing things before they broke, stopped chasing people who never reciprocated. And then the silence did what words never could. It revealed the truth. The people who truly cared noticed. They reached out. They asked if he was okay. They showed up for him, the way he'd always shown up for them. The others, they disappeared. Not because they were pushed away, but because they were never really there to begin with. That's the lesson. Silence teaches people the cost of losing you better than any speech ever could. It draws a clean line between those who value you and those who only valued your usefulness. So the next time you feel taken for granted, don't over-explain. Don't beg to be seen. Just stop. Step back and let the silence do the sorting for you. Because absence has a weight presence never had, and sometimes the only way to remind people of your worth is to leave them alone with the echo of it. Some people aren't looking for peace. They're looking for a spark. They poke. They prod. They say things they know will sting, not because they're brave, but because it's the only way they feel powerful. For them, conflict isn't a side effect. It's the goal, because chaos gives them control. And the moment you flinch, the moment you argue, the moment you raise your voice, you hand them exactly what they wanted. Your reaction. That's the game. And if you don't understand it, you'll get trapped in it, over and over again. But Stoic strength doesn't play by those rules. It stays detached, calm. It understands that some battles are designed to make you lose the moment you enter the ring. Let me tell you a story. Nina had a neighbor who lived for provocation, petty complaints, sarcastic comments, subtle insults, carefully veiled so they could deny it later. At first, Nina tried to defend herself. She argued, she explained, she played the game, and every time she left the conversation more drained than before. Until one day she made a decision, no more. The next time the neighbor made a passive-aggressive jab, Nina smiled. Not a fake smile, just a calm one. And then she said nothing, no reaction, no tension, no emotional fuel, just silence. And something strange happened. The neighbor stopped, because provocation without reaction is like shouting into an empty cave. When there's no echo, the game isn't fun anymore. That's the secret most people miss. Not every battle is yours to fight. Some are won by refusing to step into the arena at all. So the next time someone tries to pull you into chaos, remember this: you don't owe them your peace. You don't owe them your energy, and you definitely don't owe them your reaction. Let them poke, let them prod, let them swing at shadows, because when you stay still, they punch themselves out, and eventually, they get tired of swinging at nothing. Regret is a powerful emotion, but it's not always pure. Sometimes regret is genuine reflection. Other times, it's nostalgia for the access they used to have, not love for who you are. That's the difference most people miss. When someone reaches back out after losing you, it's tempting to believe they've changed, that they finally understand your worth, that the pain they caused has transformed into wisdom. But here's the hard truth. Most people don't regret hurting you. They regret losing the benefits of having you, and if you're not careful, you'll mistake their discomfort for growth. You'll open the door again, only to watch them repeat the cycle. That's why silence matters, not to punish them, not to play games, but to protect your healing. Let me tell you a story. Sophia was in a toxic relationship for years. Her ex didn't value her when it counted. He took her kindness as weakness. He used her consistency as convenience. Eventually, she walked away. No argument, no breakdown, no dramatic farewell, just a quiet exit, a decision to reclaim her peace. Months passed. Then came the texts, the calls, the apologies, flowers on the doorstep, late-night messages filled with promises of change. But Sophia didn't respond, not because she was bitter, but because she was free. Her silence wasn't revenge. It was closure for herself, not for him. She understood something most people never do. If they only value you after you're gone, let them learn from the loss. Because someone who can't see your worth when you're present doesn't deserve to access you when you're absent. Silence isn't cruelty, it's wisdom. It protects you from reopening wounds that were already healing, and it forces them to face the consequences they created, not by your hand but by their own. So the next time someone regrets losing you, remember this: you don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them a second chance. You owe yourself peace. Let the silence speak. Let the distance do the teaching. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stay gone. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. We live in a world that rewards reaction, where the loudest voice wins the moment. But Stoics don't chase the moment. They master the long game, because reaction is currency. And the wise man doesn't overspend. He doesn't argue with liars. He doesn't plead with betrayers. He doesn't defend himself to manipulators or rise to meet provocations. He understands something deeper. Karma handles what you don't need to touch. Every lie collapses under its own weight. Every betrayal circles back to the one who caused it. Every manipulative act eventually reveals its pattern, and every insult returns to its source like a boomerang. You don't have to fight for justice. You just have to stop interrupting it, because the universe always completes the equation. You just have to get out of the way. So remember this: when they lie, stay silent. When they betray, stay silent. When they provoke, manipulate or regret, stay silent. Let karma handle the echo. Let the truth return in its own time. And while the world spins itself into chaos, you remain still, unbothered, unshaken, unavailable to the noise. Because sometimes the most devastating response isn't a response at all. It's silence. You don't need to fight. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. Stay silent and watch karma destroy them quietly.